Hey everyone, how's it going? So, a super quick introduction from me and then we're going to get straight into the video. So, the interview you're about to see was an interview that was conducted by quite possibly two of the loveliest girls I've ever met, Shloka and Honey from the University of NMIMS. Now, these girls run a online magazine called Eureka, and in there they post articles all about science and biomedical science and research and all of those wonderful things. And for the September issue, they were kind enough to interview me, and part of that article was about what we're going to discuss in the upcoming video. But I just wanted to film this quick introduction and just say that if you are at all interested in that subject of science and medicine and all of that fun stuff, then definitely go and check them out and just give them some support and show them some love, because they're doing amazing work and you guys aren't going to regret it. So I'm going to leave all of their links below, and as I said, please go and show them some love because they really deserve it, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of this video.
All right, ready whenever you are.
Shloka video.
Okay, hi. So I'm really excited to be talking to you because I've been wanting to do this for so long and I finally have the chance. So I'd spoken to you like 4 years back, so I wasn't sure if I'll get you'll reply, but this really means a lot to me. So before we start with the details, I'll I have a basic background about you, as we all do because we've seen your videos and all of that. But still, for the readers, for people who don't know you, we just start with something basic, like maybe you can just tell us about your day. So what's your average day like, or how has that changed as your journey has continued? It must have changed a lot during your bachelor's and master's and all of that. So if you just tell us something about that.
Yeah, of course. So obviously my day does look a little bit different because of the coronavirus pandemic. But so for anybody who doesn't know, at the moment I'm a third-year medical student, which means I'm just starting to go into placements and actually see patients in the wards in the hospital. But prior to that, I had done a biomedical sciences degree as my undergraduate degree, and then a master's in translational cancer medicine. So coming from that sort of more lab-based and more, I guess, lecture-based background, my day right now, so in an average week, I will be spending 3 days of it in a hospital doing rotations. Now that hasn't quite started yet, obviously, because they've had to make a lot of changes. But starting next week, I believe that'll be our first rotation, and then the other 2 days, so the Thursday and a Friday, will be spent at home doing online lectures. So it's we still do have some lectures and stuff going on, but obviously because of the whole pandemic, there are a couple of things that are different.
Of course. Okay. So and is there something particular that has changed since you joined medicine as compared to before, when you were maybe pursuing biomedical science or something of that sort?
So a number of things have changed, but I think in terms of the actual way of studying, or I guess the content of it, the biggest difference I've noticed is that when I studied biomedical sciences or research, everything was very specialized, and you would know a lot about a tiny area. Whereas with medicine, it's kind of like an ocean of information, and you just have to kind of just keep your head above water. Which is really rewarding because you do get to learn a lot about lots of different things. But the biggest frustration for me, coming from a more scientific background, is just having to, be okay with the fact that I can't know everything in detail. And sometimes you just have to just go through things really quickly.
Okay, thank you. So, so you're a biomedical science graduate, and you have considerable amount of experience with research and all of that. So, was pursuing medicine something you've always wanted to do, or was there something specific that triggered that interest for medicine?
So when I was, I think, around 16 or 17, because I liked, it's for a number of reasons that a lot of students are drawn to medicine. You like science, you like working with people, all of the standard things.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
I know, everybody. We've all us. So for those reasons, I had thought about medicine. But for a number of reasons, one of them being that I just didn't have that much confidence in myself and I wasn't sure that I would get in, I kind of just got a little bit scared, and I was like, oh no, I don't think medicine is for me, but I still love the science. I still love the thought of learning biology. So I went and did biomed, and I didn't apply to medicine. And because I really enjoyed the course, my plan was to always do a PhD. And before thinking about doing a PhD, I thought, okay, well, if I do a master's research, like a research master's for a year, just to know what a PhD is like, it'll be able to give me more information. But during that time of doing my master's, I remember working with a lot of clinicians, and there was one particular clinician who is still like a mentor to me at the moment. And I remember telling her that, oh, I thought about medicine a while ago, and she was like, you would be quite good at it. Have you ever considered reapplying? And it was just a very brief conversation, but that kind of stuck in my head, and I was like,
Maybe
interesting. Let me think about this. So yeah, it was around that time, and I would go to a lot of clinics with her and see patients, and it kind of just made me realize that like it's possible to do both. You don't have to choose between medicine and research. And especially in the last, well, from my own experience, I don't know, like maybe in the last 10 years or something, a lot more clinicians, doctors are being encouraged to do more research. And because I was like seeing my supervisor do this, I go, okay, well, if she's doing it, that means it's possible to be able to do both. Like it's possible to see patients a couple of days a week and then do research the other couple. So that's how I ended up here, basically.
So actually, referring to the part that you just mentioned, we had one of the readers ask a question about, what are the job opportunities for people who want to, maybe include patients as their subjects for research. So I think you have a little experience with that. So if you
yeah, definitely. So did they mean like without going into medicine?
Without going into medicine, right?
Without going
just
into
first,
medicine.
yeah.
Sure. So this is something that I learned through. So one of the roles that I did after finishing my master's was a research technician role. And this was slightly different to a research assistant role. Now, the title of the jobs don't really matter, but the job roles were different. And basically, this job role was helping the scientists who were trying to conduct studies collect samples and information from patients. So part of my job as the research technician was to meet patients. I would introduce them to our study. So I would explain to them what we're doing, what we need from them, if they would be happy to give consent, working under all of these like ethical guidelines. So, for example, one of the studies we were doing is we were having a look at different markers in patients who had ovarian cancer, to kind of try and develop biomarkers in the future to be able to follow like the progression of these cancer patients. So what I would do is I would try and we had a system, and I would find information about these patients. Then I would try and meet up with them in the clinics and just ask them, would you be interested in taking part? If they said yes, I would ask them, would you be happy to donate some blood or donate some tissue or something like that? And again, if they said yes, we would collect the consent. And then at a future date, I would try and catch up with these patients and get blood samples from them. And what I would do is take that blood back into the lab and do the science part of it. So do the processing, do the analysis. And I think that was a really, really good mix of being able to have patient interactions, but it's not like a clinician where you're responsible for their health. It's sort of like you get to be involved, but it's not necessarily, you're not treating them in that sense.
Thank you so much for that. That really answers it. So speaking of you did a master's of research. You didn't do an MSc, right? So a lot of people are not very clear about the difference that the two have, and also, a 1-year master's as compared to a master's that's 2 of 2 years. So do you have anything to say about a difference?
Yeah, of course. So the thing is, sometimes I myself get confused about the titles they use because they can be interchangeable, and why they choose that, so what I did is an MRes, which is a Master of Research, and the difference between that and some of the other courses that I came across was that the entire 12 months was spent in a lab. So I had 6 months on one project and 6 months on another project. But in the first 3 months, we had lectures 1 hour a week every Monday. For I can't remember how many weeks, maybe like 10 to 12 weeks. It wasn't, something like that. But that's it. So we just had
just once a week.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then the rest of it was just in the lab. Now, a lot of the MSc courses that I looked at when I was looking to apply, the first 6 months were basically in lecture based, and you would do like a written piece, and then you would spend like 6 months in the lab. That's the only difference I've come across so far. but I will just take it with a pinch of salt, because sometimes they are a bit different. Sometimes you can find MSc courses that are 12 months in the lab, and they're just a bit different in that sense. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I don't think I can hear you. Your mic's turned off.
Give me, yeah.
Oh, I do that for the background noise so that when you speak, you can. No, so what I was saying is, so I think that depends on where you do your master's from, and you have to like really research what they are, expecting from your course. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And mentioning translational research, so is it different from core research, or is there something different about translational research? Is there,
So from my understanding, when you think about, like, the word translational basically means taking like certain scientific information that we know in the lab and trying to translate it to clinical practice. Again, it's one of these things that in the title, there will, it's not very black and white. Like, you will find that kind of research in a non-translational course, etc. But the way that it was explained to me in my course was that when you're doing a translational research, you have a lot more interaction with patients. So a lot of the research that was happening had a close link to the patients. So for example, you might be monitoring how well a patient is doing, and your research is based on that. You're looking at a certain protein that patients might exhibit as they go along. Whereas I think more what the term that we used to use was more basic science is, for example, you might just find a random protein in the body and start investigating it. And now you don't really know how that links to a certain diagnosis or whatever, but you're just having a look. You're just seeing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was the way that it was explained to me when I was doing my course.
Okay. So, okay. So I think you already answered this, but still, is there anything else you would want to tell us about, your job as a research technician or a research assistant? Any sort of experience that stands out, or any of that?
Oh, I think there's plenty. I have to say, I personally felt very privileged and very lucky to be able to work in the 2 labs that I did, because both of my supervisors were great role models in so many ways. And maybe I can do a bit of a parallel. So the first job that I did as a research technician, that was a job where I was involved in lots of different areas, basically. So there were certain studies and clinical trials that were being run, and the main part of my role was to, as I said, see patients and consent to them and explain what we're doing and take those samples and run assays and things like that. Whereas the second job that I did as a research assistant, that was a bit more of what you would expect from like a typical scientist. So I had a theory, and I would discuss this with my supervisor, and I would have to plan experiments and go and do them and come back and analyze the data. But the thing I have to say that stood out to me from both of these is just how much of a collaborative field it is. So in my first role as a research technician, the best thing was that I got to work with doctors, with nurses, with healthcare assistants, with phlebotomists, with other scientists, PhD students. So that was amazing. And then in my second role as a research assistant, so I was based at King's College, but we did a lot of collaborations with other groups at UCL, at the Institute of Cancer Research in London. So it was just amazing to see that so many people are working together in so many different areas.
Together.
It's amazing. And actually, I should. Might be worth mentioning as well that even during my master's, we had 3 clinicians who had come from the Tata Institute in India, and they were already So we had, I think we had 1 surgeon, 1 palliative care doctor, and 1 pathologist, if I'm not mistaken. So they had come over to kind of gain these research skills from that master's course and take it back and hopefully maybe set up a course or set up something similar in India, which I thought was amazing. So this is the thing. So we have a lot of links between the Tata Institute and King's. So a lot of collaboration happens there as well. So that's definitely one of the highlights of this. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, this is one of my favorite questions because I wanted to ask you this. So apart from work in academics and all of that, you have a YouTube channel based on you help all of us, people like us, budding aspirants, and you have an art account. You are a wonderful artist, by the way. So how do you find time for that? And when did you decide that, I want to start a YouTube channel and I want to do this? Was that, something that started?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. And I get that. I get asked that quite a lot. And the honest answer is I don't know. I don't know. What I can say to people who have a lot of hobbies and interests, but worry that they might lose them, the thing that I would say is you figure out the way that suits you best. So, like, let me say, like, explain what I mean. So, for example, I know people who will say that, okay, from 9 o'clock till 5, I am going to work. And then from 5 o'clock until whatever, that's dedicated to my hobbies. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That doesn't really work for me because I like to work in blocks. So, I mean, just to give you an example, should I be saying this? I don't know. So basically, during, even though we had online lectures for the Thursday and the Friday, we're currently about to go into another lockdown in the UK. So I was just before this happened, I wanted to take the opportunity to go and see a friend. So before we're not allowed to see anybody anymore. And because of that, I took one day off in the middle of the week to go and see my friend, and I wasn't worried about university or whatever. But that means that now at the weekend, I will spend my free time working, and I'm completely happy to do so. So the way that I manage to keep my hobbies and my work is I compartmentalize. So in my head, I go, okay, so for the next 3 hours, I'm just going to study, and then no phone, no texting, no anything like this. This interview is an exception, obviously.
It's very difficult for that.
Yeah. But I would say for other people, if I just were to see what I observe from my friends and other people around me, you figure it out. If you're a dancer or you're a cook or you love something, like you find a way to sort it out. And I think that's what I would say. I've just found a way to keep it going, I guess.
That's amazing. So also for your YouTube channels, you make like vlogs and lab tours and stuff like that. So are they very appreciative of it, or like you have to like hide and do it, like because showing?
That's quite a funny question. So I think definitely at the beginning you have this like awkward, especially when like you don't have that many people.
Yeah, especially when you start off, because I think eventually people are used to like, okay, they know that she's interviewing, we know what she's doing, but otherwise, like when you start off with something like that, people are curious, about what are you doing. So.
Yeah, I have to say though, that is getting better. Like at the time when I started, so I started 4 years ago, and back then, even 4 years ago, yeah, it was a bit weird. But now, so many people, like literally, most people that you come across, have definitely like they've heard of YouTubers or they've heard of like people on Instagram, and a lot of these people have their own accounts, so it's become a bit more normal, which I'm grateful for. So I don't have to keep explaining every time like what are you doing with the camera. It was a bit embarrassing at the beginning, and yeah, I definitely did have a couple of these moments where firstly like my friends found out. Well, actually I told my friends because I was like, they're gonna find out eventually, so I'll tell them. But then it was like some people on my course found out, and then some people at work found out. And do you know what? Even if people disagree with it or don't like it, nobody has said anything to my face. So they could be saying behind my back, like, what is she doing? But like, I have to say, like in general, like day-to-day interactions, people have been very positive, and I've made friends through it, and I've had people come up to me who were just like, oh yeah, we've seen your videos, and it's like the best feeling because yeah, exactly, it's literally this interview actually, I was scrolling up and I saw the messages that you sent me from 2017, so I think it's amazing. This is what I mean. Like this is.
I was back in 12th grade when I had no idea about biomedical sciences. I was just exploring. I knew I liked biology, but I didn't know anything of. And I just found your videos, and I'm like, okay, this helps.
But like this is the amazing thing, because you guys are going to write this article, okay, and maybe 4 years from now, somebody else will come and say to you, I read the article, and that article really changed my life, and do you know what I mean? Like that's why you do it, because it's this kind of like cyclical process, and I think it's lovely. It's like literally the best thing ever. So occasionally you might get a couple of funny looks, occasionally you might have people being like, what are you doing? But ultimately I think it's worth it. It's worth the little small things that come up. So that's how I feel.
I think it's a great thing to do. Like it requires a lot of courage, and it's really wonderful what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean the other thing that helps is starting out, like I didn't actually like it didn't feel like you're talking to people. I just felt like I'm just putting videos, like a couple of people are watching it, so it doesn't really matter. But now I'm like, oh God, like I need to like, what's happening?
Yeah, because when I was speaking to Honey about, approaching you, and I came up with the idea that maybe we could, I was like, I spoke to her 4 years back, but back then she had just started out. So she replied. I don't know if she's going to, reply and respond, but it actually means so much that you did. So thank you for that.
No, that's okay. And I think, and sorry, I just plugged my laptop in. No, I think, and I would say this for anybody else as well who does these sort of things, is that it's always good because like I think one of the reasons why, I mean, I don't have a massive following, but I have like an okay following, and it's because people have helped me along the way. Yeah. No, but like that's the thing, isn't it? Like, so I think it's really important to support each other because we're all in the same field, right? So
right. And especially the thing is, your content is something that actually helps others. It's not just, it's something educational. So it helped me. And I know a lot of people, because a lot of my friends, when I told them that I'm going to be interviewing you, they're like, oh my God, I'm so
that's really kind. Thank you. So, honestly, like it really made my day. Thank you.
I mean, it's no flattery. Okay, so so one of the questions that we all had is that if you want to pursue, a career in research, is it compulsory for you to have a PhD, or you think you can get into the field with, just a master's? Is that enough, or is a PhD always recommended?
So this is what I would say. It's like when you think about like any other job, there's usually like a trajectory that you follow up.
Right.
So the simple answer to that question is yes, you can do research without a PhD, but there's usually a ceiling that you will hit. So for example, where I had done my undergraduate and I had done my master's and I was working in research. So I had got to a certain point, but the research that I was carrying out was research that I was helping a postdoctoral fellow carry out. Or it would be research that like I'm not doing the
not of your own. It's not your own research.
Exactly. But the thing is, that's not necessarily a bad thing because a lot of people they want to do research, but they're not necessarily interested in doing their own questioning because that comes with a lot of its own challenges. And some people are quite happy to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, one of your skills is you're also a phlebotomist. I've seen your videos. I've seen you, drawing.
Oh, yeah.
So, considering you're doing medicine now, has that skill really helped you in any way, or has it been, beneficial even for your research because it involved patients? So maybe because you were skilled, you were chosen for different tasks just because you knew it.
Definitely. I mean, I haven't taken blood from a patient in medicine yet. Okay. Actually, we had like stimulations where we had to like practice on our arm, like a rubber arm. So we had that literally last week. But I have taken blood from patients as part of my job when I was working at King's. I think it definitely helps when it comes to medicine because not only is it just like a skill, the actual skill is something you pick up, but the most important thing that I learned from doing phlebotomy training is the patient interaction. So I remember when I was taking blood from a couple of patients who were nervous, it's the whole thing of being like, oh, it's okay, don't worry, it's a sharp scratch, it'll be over quick. And you have to learn that kind of art of putting people at ease. And I think more than the practical skill, I think that's what I would like to take onto medicine. And yeah, so I hopefully like those interactions of trying to make people feel comfortable is what I've taken away from that experience.
Oh, sorry, before I just go ahead with anything, I just want to say, like, when I started watching your videos, you had just completed with your biomedical, and you would always talk about how you want to pursue medicine. You're not, like, gotten into medical school yet, so just seeing you right now, it just makes me very happy. You just feel like, oh, you've seen her journey, and you just feel so nice that,
you say that. Exactly, I have that feeling every morning. I literally wake up, and I'm like, am I really here? Am I really? And it's such a nice feeling that you just think, oh my gosh, it's been so long and I'm actually here. Really? Like, I'm not dreaming.
Because you would always post videos about, giving your entrances and your interviews and, so I'm just like, oh, she's finally here.
Definitely.
That's great. Okay. All right. So, All right. So as a medicine student, even biomedical science student for that matter, we usually have a lot of practical skills and clinical skills that is a major part of our curriculum. So considering the whole pandemic and the online lectures, how do you think that has affected learning in general, not just for our field, just in general? Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have to say that I empathize hugely with a lot of students who might not be able to get the same hands-on experience as they otherwise would have. Having said that, I think it does come down to individual students and what they prefer. So I definitely do learn hands-on better, but I don't learn hands-on unless I have some sort of I guess theoretical or something like information prior. So there are certain people that they will know no information and you will just put them in the lab and they'll pick it up and they'll remember.
Right.
If you did that with me, I wouldn't learn. And I actually had that experience in my undergraduate where they would just put us in the lab and then give us instructions and go. I'd be like, oh my God, I don't know. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Like, so what I would say is for students who feel like they're worried that they're missing out on these skills, what I would say to you is, honestly, there are like YouTube is such an amazing platform. You can just, whatever experiment you want to learn,
You can learn.
watch it. And the thing is, like, you may not think you're learning, but you are. And whenever the opportunity like arises where you can get back into the lab, you've watched it, you've seen it, so you will be able to pick it up like, I don't know, 20 times easier.
Yeah, at least you have like a basic idea of it as compared to like if you were just blank.
Totally.
Right.
Exactly. So, and actually, just on the note of that, a couple of people have messaged me worried for that reason of I'm not going to have work experience. What are we going to do? And I do have huge empathy, but I would say don't let that stop you. Like what this time, it just reflects to us that we just have to do things a little bit differently. Different doesn't mean bad; it just means different. And if we can find a way to adjust and adapt, yeah, exactly, then people shouldn't be worried about it.
Okay, just one more thing. So you pursued your medicine after your graduate studies, and so what would you say that one advantage that you have over people who just start off as medicine right after their 12th grade? Do you think there's something, and do you think you would have pursued medicine back then and would have done it as well, or?
Yeah, that's also a really, really good question, and I think it's something people think about a lot. There are two main things for me. The first advantage is that, like, I feel more like confident and emotionally mature. And what I mean by that is, like, in medicine, like you do, and I do meet a lot of 18, 19, 20-year-olds who are incredibly mature and who are incredibly, thoughtful. So I'm not saying like you do get those people, but for me personally, I feel like going at it at this age, I've had an opportunity to kind of develop mentally, if that makes sense, so I know the more confident you are, the more you're able to make other people feel comfortable. So that's one advantage. The second biggest advantage is that I got the chance to travel, to spend a lot of time with friends, to do all of these, like spend a lot of time on my extracurricular activities, explore different hobbies and avenues before I got into medicine. So now I don't have the question of what if, because I'd done it, so I did actually take a year out after my undergraduate before starting my master's to just figure things out. And that's when I started my YouTube channel. I started painting more. I started tutoring and working a part-time job, and doing all of those things made me more sure that this is the right way for me. Whereas something that I've spoken about to a lot of junior doctors who started when they're 18, they become doctors when they're 23. They're very sharp, they're very fresh, but after a couple of years, they go, oh gosh, we didn't. There are other things that we haven't thought
we
about.
Could have done, right?
Exactly. So that's why there's quite a popular thing in the UK. We call it like a F3, like a foundation 3 year, which is like an unofficial year that a lot of medical students take off to go and do all of that figuring out and traveling and exploring. So I don't think there's one better than the other, but for me personally, I don't think I would have been ready when I was 18. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right, so one more thing. Okay. Just one thing. So, what is the most important lesson that you think you have learned throughout this whole journey? Is there, something that you would like to say to all of us? If there's a lesson, is a teaching, anything, some piece of advice?
I think the biggest lesson that I've learned, and I would highly, highly encourage everybody to think about this, is learn to know yourself well. Like, I know that seems like a bit of like a fluffy piece of advice, but one of the thing that has been like monumental in my own I guess journey throughout all of this, both in my personal life and my academic life, is know yourself well. Know, like, for example, when it comes to academia, know how you study best, know how you don't learn, know whether you work better in groups or hands-on, like, know all of those things. And on a personal life, know what stresses you out, know what upsets you, know what excites you, know what situations you're going to find challenging. And kind of when you're in your day-to-day life, like, pay attention to your thoughts and to how you're feeling, because something that's really, really important, like in any area of life, but I think especially in jobs where you are working with people, you have so much interaction, is you need to be able to have a good handle on your own psyche, if you like your own emotions. So if a patient says something, like, patients will be angry, they'll be upset, they'll be distressed, and you need to be able to find a way to deal with your own emotions so you can make room for other people. And I think that's the biggest thing that I would say to all students, is just learn to know yourself. And as I said, even when it comes to like academia and the way of learning, I learned through a lot of trial and error, to be honest, that I learn best when I watch content. So lectures, videos, like listening to things, that's how I learn. And I remember forcing myself to try and learn from textbooks and then feeling like I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And then I got to the point of just accepting that, certain other students can read something and immediately pick it up. Yeah. Exactly. That's not me, but it's okay. It's okay not to be like that, And I think just understanding, okay, well, this is how I am. How can I adjust to the way I am? And I would encourage all students to kind of get to know themselves and kind of make room for themselves and make adaptations. And yeah, because I think one of the issues is just, again, in general in life, but also a lot of students do this, is it's really easy to compare yourself with other people. And just, your genius might not match somebody else's genius, but you can't cross compare, because they're both great in and of themselves. So that's what I would say.
That really means a lot. Thank you. Oh, I just forgot. I had to ask you one more thing. So all of us were biomedical, not all of us, but like we are biomedical science students. So in biomedical science, you touch upon a lot of subjects. Like you have pharmacology, you have toxicology, you have genetics. We're just like touching upon everything. So it becomes, because we are exposed to all of it, it's a good thing because we have a basic idea about everything. But it also becomes more difficult when you have to select on one topic to pursue your masters, because you're like, okay, maybe I like that, maybe I like that. But then masters, it gets a little more specific. So at least I, as a person, this is a question coming from me, because I am finding it really difficult. I'm in my third year now, so I should like decide a specific area that I would like to pursue my master's in. So any advice on how you realize that, I want to do cancer, and anything to narrow it down?
Yeah, I completely empathize with that. I think that's something that we've all faced. For me personally, I kind of, so I'll answer it in two parts. So the question of like, how do you decide? I think if you have a look at how you decide, like right in front of you, yes, it seems like so many options and there's so many things you could choose. Now, if you take a look at it a few steps forward, the research that you will do, let's say you want to work in a lab, ultimately all of the techniques you will use will be the same, or they'll be similar. The only thing that'll be different will be your questions. So if you do cancer, your question could be, how do we stop cells proliferating? Okay. And then, like, let's say you go and do something like, I don't know, something to do with maybe with liver disease. You could just ask, what are the molecular mechanisms behind cirrhosis? Something like that. So ultimately, when you at that level, you might be using the same experiments. You'll be using PCR, like Western blots, like ELISAs. You'll be having a look at similar things. But to answer your question about, like, for me personally, for reasons I can't really explain, it's really odd. Like, I just had this like natural gravitation towards the cancer biology module. And I remember the thing that made it solid for me was I was looking to do some work experience, like just in the summer, after my second year, and I was just emailing lots of people, and the only person who replied to me was one of the principal investigators who was doing some work in breast cancer. And because he replied and he invited me to his lab, I just like my I guess interest with cancer grew from there, because I got to see what actually happens in the cancer research lab.
Right.
Exactly. Now, sometimes I do ask myself the question, imagine if instead of that the doctor who got in touch with me, imagine if somebody from neurosciences got in touch with me. Would I be doing like neuroscience right now?
Right.
Yeah. What if like a pharmacology person? The answer might be yes, it might be no. But sometimes things just happen like that. They kind of like fall into place, and it just has that thing of feeling right. So I would say sometimes when it comes to making decisions, as long as you have a general idea of where you want to go, it might be the case of just letting the process kind of happen. I know that's a bit of a frustrating advice, because we all like to take control and go, this is what I want. I'm 100% sure. Like I'm exactly the same.
Yeah.
But if I were to give some like actual practical advice, I would say that contact areas that you have a general interest in. Like, let's say you have like 4 or 5 areas, that like out of 20, you might have 4 or 5 that you're kind of interested in. And just contact people and say, can I have a half an hour chat with you? Like something like that. Or read into some of their publications. And sometimes, like similar to me, you'll just feel this gravitation towards one thing. And you might not exactly be able to know why, but you just feel like, for some reason, I find genetics really interesting. Let me just find out a bit more about it. So that's what I would say to students. Just feel things out and see if an answer pops up in that way.
Honey and I both have an interest for stem cells.
Oh, do you? Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
See, that's already a sign. So it just means that you guys have to just try and find people who are doing that and just be like, can we ask you some questions? Can you send us some resources?
Right. Which is why I joined Eureka, because we get chance like that, to talk to people and get to know them. Like for a previous issue, we spoke to, I was in a part, but Honey was a part of it. She spoke to a principal investigator of a lab, working with stem cells. So, that really helps. So coming to work experience, you mentioned work experience. A lot of us, some of us, have work experience, some of us don't have work experience, and we're not very sure how to go about it. And before pursuing my master's, when I talk to people, some people are like, just go ahead with your master's. Some are like, just take a year off and have some experience, because it's very different from academics, and actually working in a lab and actually working in the setting is very, very different. So it's much better if you have that experience. So what do you think? You've also taken a year off. So do you think that was advantageous? Would you recommend something like that?
So the year that I took off after my undergraduate degree, that was less about pursuing my career, and that was more of just trying to figure life out, basically. Yeah, and a bit of a break. So I wouldn't look at it that way per se. I think what I would say when it comes to work experience is that people understand that it's difficult to get work experience. So I think this is something students panic about, and they go, oh my gosh, I don't have 3 months working in a lab. Like people are empathetic. So what I would suggest to all students is, if you have tried and have not been successful in finding work experience, you can say that. It's okay to say that and say, I have been looking for something like this. I have been unsuccessful, but I'm very eager to learn. Right. I think ultimately that's what people look for. But when it comes to actually practically getting work experience, again, it's a case of unfortunately, it is a bit of a numbers game of you may just have to contact 20, 30, 40, 50 people, something like that. And sometimes you might get lucky and you could get a funded placement for 10 weeks and you do an actual research, and I got quite lucky in that sense. But if that doesn't happen, you can just say, can I just come in and help around for a week and just see what your team does? And when you're asking for something, if it seems like you're asking for something small and you get your foot in, then people will be more likely to help you. So you could literally start off with, can I come and just observe for a day?
Right.
Exactly, for a day. And you might meet that person on the day, and maybe during that day, they'll realize, oh, this person's really serious. And then after that, you can say, okay, well, I've been here for a day. If in the future you have something for longer, please, can you let me know? And then that one day could turn into a week, could turn into the 3 months that you're looking for. Whereas I think it's useful to have a look at it from like the principal investigator's point of view. You know, they must get so many emails of students being like, can we come and work in your lab for 6 months? And they're going to be like, no, like we can't do that. So that's what I would say to students. Start small and work your way up eventually. And don't be disappointed if you get a lot of rejections straight away. You know, just keep going, because it's a process. I've been through it. Yeah, I've been through it. I'm sure you've been through it. I'm sure so many students will go through it. But yeah, you just have to keep at it.
Okay. So considering like we're from India, so if you've ever interacted with people, you know, international students, what do you think are the requirements, you know, for masters, and is there any special sort of requirements they expect from people coming from abroad, or specifically India, if you have any idea of that?
Unfortunately, I don't. See, again, this is a question I get asked a lot. I get asked about like the different international requirements and stuff. And my advice always is get in touch. This is what I say. I would say like literally write maybe about 150 words about yourself and what you've done. You could say, my name is this, I'm from India, this is the university I've been to, blah, 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 blah. And then send it to multiple different universities and just say, what are my chances? What are my requirements? Do I meet your criteria? Do I not? That's what I would recommend for everybody to do, because, I mean, I personally don't know. And I have a feeling that it might be different based on different institutes and stuff. So I would say just go to the source, explain who you are, and then just get a direct answer that way.
Okay, we've almost come to the end of this. It was lovely, absolutely lovely talking to you. Honestly, this question is just open-ended. It's for you. If you have anything to just conclude, anything to tell us, either of us or just to our leaders in general, you can tell us.
I think this is something that I just like to share with anyone and everyone, is that this field, you know, science, healthcare, medicine, research, all of that, it can seem very competitive. And I think because of that, there's a lot of room for people to get very protective of their information, to get very protective of their time, to get very protective of, you know, their own accomplishments and achievements. And what I would say is it's not finite, you know, like, yes, one job, you might be wanting one person, but there'll be hundreds of other jobs. And just because your friend or somebody you know got something, it doesn't mean that that's taken away from you. So the best thing that we can all do just in this field is to support and help each other, even if sometimes it means like putting your own ego aside and go, you know, I really wanted that job, but my best friend got an interview and I didn't. And I know it's easier said than done. But this is what I would always say, is that if you can, you know, somebody else's success doesn't mean your failure. So if you can support people around you, you could support, like, this is what I mean, exactly what you guys are doing. So the information that like you guys are doing as part of your, you know, the Eureka, that can help other students. And you don't lose from it, do you? It's not like somebody reading your article means you all of a sudden don't get a job, you know, it just, so yeah, so I would just say, just generally for any students watching this, it would be great to develop more of like a collaborative nature and like help each other. And don't worry if you don't get your win the first time round, okay? Just keep trying, because the more you help people, the more like it'll come back around to you. And just, yeah, that's what I would say to a lot of students. Because I just, it's very important for me, because I don't really know what it's going to be like going forward in medicine. But from what I've heard, I think this whole like competitive nature can be diminishing to everybody. So if we can kind of work together at our stage where, you know, we're all quite junior, then maybe when we all, you know, 10 years down the line, when we're in different positions, then we can, you know, build better, more collaborative systems. So yeah, I think that's the final thing that I would say.
Okay, thank you so much. This honestly means so much to me. Like right now, I might look very calm and composed, but inside I'm just, oh my god, what happened?
Like said, like, ever since you replied, Shloka's been honey. It's coming soon, honey. I'm so nervous. I don't know what I'm going to do.
That's so sweet. And honestly, like, it's been lovely. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you both. And you know what? I would love to. You should keep me updated on your journey. So let me know if you get that, you know, stem cell research job. I'll be watching.
Yes, definitely. And if I'm coming to UK, I'm gonna let you know.
Absolutely. Call me up. We'll go for a coffee.
Definitely.
All
So
right.
also about our just one, so our course. So we're doing biomedical science, but what Honey is pursuing is like an integrated thing. So she's going to finish her master's here.
Yeah.
She's gonna finish her master's here, whereas I plan to exit after my third year. So if she has something else that she would want to ask
Of
personally.
course, yeah.
I was just gonna ask you, can I ask you? So, like you said, so like Shloka mentioned that she wants to do something very specific in masters. I don't have the option to since like college is not letting us do it.
Oh,
So,
gosh,
yeah. So like I have to do my masters in biomedical science. Do you think like it's better than doing something specific? Like, will it help me, or like will I just get nowhere? I don't know.
No, don't worry about it. Again, like this is another common question that I get where people ask me, is this better? Is that better? Is that the thing is ultimately is what I was saying before of all of these masters will teach you the same transferable skills. And then you can go on and apply it in different fields. I mean, the example I like to use is like cooking. Like you can learn how to chop onions, you can learn how to, do all of the basics. And then if someone's like, oh, do you want to cook Japanese food or Indian food or British food or like Italian food? As long as you have all of the basics, you can apply the same skills to whatever cuisine you want. So don't think that it's going to hinder you in any way. It's not.
Thank you so much. And like when Shloka told me about you, she texted me like, listen, can we approach her? I'm like, she's been following you since you started. She's like, can we approach her? I don't know if she'll reply, but if she does, it'll be so great. Because when she told me you're a graduate medicine student, I told Shloka that's something even I might end up doing. Like it's something that's always been on my mind, and I've been reading more about it. So then like, Shloka, let's do this. If she replies, it'll be so great.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you so much. This has been so helpful for like both of us. We both take
For
so
all of
much.
us, I'm sure everybody is just gonna learn so much from this. It's honestly been so much. This is
I'm glad. Thank you. And thank you for having me. And honestly, girls, if there's anything else I can help with, just drop me a text and I'll do my best. And I think I've said this like so many times, but like I think it's so great what you guys are doing. And I really hope that it can go on and help other students as well.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I'm gonna text you if I forget, because I'm blanking out now. So if there's
That's all right. No, yeah. Text me. Just message me on Instagram. Like sometimes I'm a bit slow with replying, but I reply eventually.
In fact, today morning we were actually worried. We were like, oh, she's not replied to the link. What if she doesn't join?
Oh no. I'm sorry. Like I'm just.
No, this is really fine.
Sometimes I just have to just put my phone down because it's not even important stuff. Like my friends will be texting me stupid things, and I'm like, I need to study today. Like I need to put it down. So yeah. All right. So is that everything from me then, girls?
That's all right. Yes, that's all.
Well, then have a lovely day, and it was lovely to meet you both.
Same here. It was so. Thank you so much.
Take
Bye bye.
care.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.